Hi, everybody. Welcome to this episode of The Latest Thread. So today we're going to talk about something we're really excited about, which is to do in-person learning. In-person classes are back on. It's been a pretty rough year or so. It's been okay doing online courses. Students have enjoyed those as well, but we are really anxious to get back out on the road and bring hands-on learning to you. So Gammill is having retreats, 4 retreats, and we want to talk a little bit about those. But then we also want to talk about, how we feel about things that we look forward to as we go back out on the road. So Karen, would you like to share your screen so we can look at these retreats? Thank you. So there is 4 retreats. There is 4 amazing locations starting in Las Vegas, August 4th through the 7th. And how these retreats are set up, they're all inclusive. So it includes your hotel stay, your food for the 2.5 days, as well as your choice of classes. You can choose from 10 90-minute sessions, and each event has different instructors ranging from computerized to hand-guided. And each instructor is presenting and teaching their own class material. So that was Las Vegas, and then we have Houston, August 25th through the 28th. So Houston is a great place to visit. And again, we have a variety of educators.
I'm getting overzealous on my screen, Sharon.
And then in September, we are going to look forward to seeing you at the Hershey Lodge, September 12th to 15th. That's supposedly a really nice place that has a park and everything.
If you're in the parking lot to the lodge, you can actually see the roller coaster from the park. It's like right there.
So these locations were chosen not only because they're obviously gorgeous and beautiful, but also with the thought behind it that if you want to bring someone along with you to make it a getaway, that there's things for your guest to do as well while you're taking classes. So each location has something different to offer for them to do. Okay, and the last one is September 26th through the 29th in Des Moines, Iowa. So those are the 4 retreat locations, and registration will start July 13th. So check it out. All the classes are listed with descriptions. We hope to see you there.
Well, and I think they can sign up anytime. You can just start picking, you can choose your classes on the 13th.
Yeah.
So you can, sign up, and then on the 13th, you'll be able to pick your class.
Because I think they still have the early bird pricing where you save a decent chunk of money.
Yeah.
And for those of you who had signed up for the Quilting with Confidence online, there's also a discount towards the retreats if you're deciding to take advantage of that.
Yeah, if you haven't used it already.
Yep. So lots of good stuff.
But we can't actually forget, though. We still have some online stuff going on, too.
Yes, we do. But yeah, I'm for one, am looking forward to,
Peopling?
Doing what?
Peopling. Seeing people.
Yeah, seeing people. I mean, the online with the Zoom has been fine. It has been okay. There was interaction. To me, it was surprisingly more, and students gave that feedback also that they felt they were part of something. The social interaction was okay for it being online, but and we had to do what we had to do.
But I think it's split. I think some people love the in-person and some people love the online because it's more at their own, like their own pace.
Yes.
So it's like the best of both sides there.
Well, and there's a lot of people, that I would guess are really loving all the online stuff, because I can remember back when I first started, my son was little. Like I couldn't just go for a week. I mean, and this enables probably a lot of people who can't normally go.
Yeah, whether little kids or caring for your parents or,
Sure.
a family
Or
member.
maybe, you have mobility issues even, where it just isn't practical for you to make a trip like that. So.
Well, and there's also the people that are intimidated in the setting of, hands-on learning because, they feel that they're not good enough or people are watching them, and they rather want to do this online and be able to do it, by themselves.
Mhm.
And, there's all kinds of people. We all learn at different levels. We all feel more comfortable with certain things. But yeah, there's.
I like retreats for the food.
Well, yeah, we do. You're right.
Mhm. Mhm.
So, but I guess I'm proud of Gammill because we're covering both sides
Yep.
with 100% effort, so
Yeah.
Yeah.
in person or online.
Yay.
I think the key word for me is inclusive, and it's not limiting anybody from being able to participate in a Gammill event, to have face-to-face interaction with educators, and just to be able to have those conversations. I mean, that is so valuable to people, and now anybody can participate no matter where you are, and what your limits are. You can do it at your own pace and in the comfort of your home. So I think it's a brilliant way to go forward with both for people. I'm excited about that too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and just, it's aside from the education, everything that we're excited about, I'm also looking forward to hopefully go to some actual quilt shows again, look at some quilts in person.
Not through the screen, right?
We had some great opportunities with being able to submit quilts online. And again, that worked well. But to see them in person and the hustle and bustle of people walking through there, and you hear the comments about the quilts and the oohs and the ahs, and, and let's not forget about being able to shop. I'm sure the vendors are looking forward. They've had a rough year, I'm sure. And it's just, whether it's quilting supplies or I know, we like to look at jewelry too when we're out there at the quilt show, I mean, all kinds of stuff. It's the whole experience that I'm looking forward to, being able to do again. I don't know about you guys. But
Well, yeah, buying fabric in person and being able to touch it and feel it and see the real colors instead of guessing on the screen.
yeah.
Do you do that? I look at the desktop and the laptop and I see, like,
Yeah.
is it really blue or is it a purpley blue? Like, I want to know.
I will
which
call the
blue.
shop and have them take the fabrics by a natural window and send me a photograph. I
Yeah.
put a whole entire quilt together from 2 different online stores. And when I got the fabrics, they were great because they, most of the shops are being really good about going that extra mile for you and sending you the pictures and yeah. But I miss buying fabric. I miss picking it out, you know.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I'm just looking forward to the antics.
The antics.
Yes, the things that go on, you know.
Stories
When
that
you
make the
laugh
shows
so
good.
hard you can't even speak.
Mhm.
That all that stuff is, you know, the best, I think.
Yeah.
Not sitting in an airport with a delay, of course, but
No.
you know, that comes with it, I suppose.
Part of the fun in getting to the antic.
Mm,
Because
Yeah,
you ever notice
I get-
you're not usually delayed on the way home. It's always on the way there.
Yeah.
It makes the antics even more enjoyable, right?
Yeah.
You have something to look forward to.
I remember Jodi and I had an experience once where, you know, our flights were totally screwed up and then they lost our luggage in transit.
No, they sent the luggage on the plane that we should
Yeah,
have
the
been
luggage
on.
made it,
So
but you
therefore
didn't.
it was lost.
It
But
was
I,
waiting
for
us
one,
there.
was panicking because they weren't quite specific as when we might expect the luggage. And of course, that's the downside. If you have all your teaching material in your suitcase, forget about the clothes. We can, you know, deal with that. But
No, I was
But-
more concerned with my clothes and my toiletries because I know what
Toiletries,
class
yeah.
is. I can do the class, but the idea that I'm gonna have to teach in these clothes,
In our
No.
travel clothes, right?
right?
Yeah.
So I guess those are the things, you know, that we have fond memories of, and it's all part of it. It's the whole experience that I'm looking forward to, you know.
Yep.
All right. Anything else anybody wants to add? All right.
Regardless of whether it's
Well-
online or in person, I'm looking forward to seeing all you shining student faces, all excited and eager to learn new things. And I'm excited for it, all of it.
Yes.
Okay, then I guess it's time for a break and we'll see you back in just a bit. Welcome back, everyone. Now we're ready for our next segment, Ideas for Your Quilt. And today we have Laura Gates with us. And she's going to tell us a little bit about herself and her quilt. And we're anxious to hear all about it and see what her quilt's all about. Go ahead, Laura. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Hi, ladies. Thanks so much for having me here today. I have to say I am crushing a little bit as I see you all up on the screen. But just a little bit about myself. My name is Laura, and I live in Delta, British Columbia, and that's just outside of Vancouver in Canada. And for the last 5 years, I've been working at getting better at long arming, and I'll have a new learning curve to hurdle because just 4 days ago, I had a brand new 26-inch Gammill delivered to my house. So it's sitting up there in the sewing room and I haven't had much time to practice. So I am looking forward to hearing what you have to say so I can start on a new project. The quilt that I sent in to you is a customer quilt done by a very good friend of mine. And she has given us permission to do whatever we like. So I think I'll just sit back and have my coffee and listen to what you all have to say. So thank you.
Okay.
All right. Do you want to tell us a bit about the pattern and the quilt itself before maybe the construction looks a little unusual, the pattern name?
Yeah, the pattern is by Allison Glass and it's called Swell. And it is completely paper pieced.
Oh, okay.
I was trying to figure that out from the picture. How exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, that's cool. All right. So here we go.
Okay.
I'm just going to enlarge that a little bit.
I was like, we never know what order they're going to be in.
Nope, surprise.
So Laura, you had indicated that you have different areas of experience in your quilting. So that made it a little bit easier because you said you are familiar with ruler work. And I have to say, and this happens a lot of times when we get these images, but with this one in particular, it had that super weird shape, in behind the stars. And I couldn't for the longest time figure out, how to make that work in my head anyhow. So obviously, we have the stars and then these, I don't even know what you call those shapes that are, in behind them. Does anybody else know what that
Like
shape?
a pointy bottom parallelogram.
Okay.
Sounds pretty technical.
Sides, but yeah, they're different lengths.
So I thought, the stars should be highlighted, the points of the stars, because there's actually two stars, the inner star and then the outer star. So on the inner star, I decided to just go with a swirl because the whole quilt leads super linear. So it needed, in my mind, some softening up. And if you're doing this swirl where you hit the intersections of those points, as your boundary, so to speak, then you can just do a swirl. And in this case, I chose to make a line coming out of the swirl because the goal is to quilt this as continuous as possible. And then just did echoes of the larger star points with pearls to really define the star points. And then in those weird shapes, what I wanted to do like, prism, half a prism, and then that connects going into the next one. So the idea is, and again, we don't generally know the size of the pieces. So, you can make that, choose a size, whether it's half an inch or smaller or larger, depending on the actual size. But the whole goal is to connect those lines, so it's a continuation from one of those shapes to the next. And then I chose just to do pebbles in those, locking shapes. And you can literally, the way I drew it, I thought you can literally travel from one area to the next. The quilting seems a little dense. I don't know how you're going to use the quilt. I tend to be a dense quilter, but that's what I came up with.
Oh, I think it looks fabulous. I really like the changes in the texture. And just sort of when I look at it, it sort of reminds me of sort of like a modern seascape where I see sort of the stars as starfish and those weird shapes as clams. And I don't know, I quite like the contrast. That's interesting. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
This one's mine. And so so it's really fast, easy, as long as you can, and you said you do ruler work. And so I kind of take a different approach. Like Ava said about, it was very angular. So she wanted to soften it up. And a lot of times for me, I do that as well. But a lot of times I like to even more accentuate that sharpness of it. This almost reminds me of like gems somehow once it's all quilted.
Yeah.
And knowing myself, not that you're the same, but if I was going to try to put some kind of a design into different parts of this, like the little stars and then the bigger stars, I know I would lose my way and I would be ripping out because it's confusing. I would probably have to take my chalk marker and chalk out like these stars if I were going to do them individually that way, just because, they're not all the same color. So what I did, and you can see on the left-hand side, well, I would actually load it this direction because when I drew it, I turned it to draw it this direction that it is, because then it's more efficient. So those lines that run where it's just the singular lines, all I did was trace the piecing that's there. So I didn't need to mark anything. I would do one line, just following that piecing the whole way across, bump down, follow that same line, but below it back. And then I echoed, and again, the scale, I don't know what that scale is. And I just echoed each of those lines once on the top and once on the bottom.
Your design, though, it's almost like a secondary overlay. Like,
yeah,
it went from stars to diamonds. It's so cool.
It's hard when you draw it, I think, because you have to use a color that you can see, because it wouldn't be that obvious because you would use a thread. I would probably use a medium gray so that it blended kind of with everything. But what I realized is that, okay, great for this direction, but now I need to come down here and do that same thing because I just did the same thing. Then I chose that one long straight thing, but I realized pretty quickly that as long as I add the horizontal and vertical lines through it, that gives me a place to travel. So when I work down the other direction, I can come to a line, travel, and go back up instead of, because you could turn the quilt, but I wouldn't. So, and then once I added those lines, the straight ones, I think it just added to it. So it really would go very quick because, to me, I love ruler work. And so it's always the easiest, I think, because there's already points there. There are lines to follow. I didn't have to mark anything. I don't have to think really. So, and you could even fill in those bigger open areas if you wanted to, I guess.
Oh, that looks great. It's a very modern look as well. So Jodi, did you say that you started by doing the straight horizontal lines?
Yeah,
first,
well, I
right
did.
Through, or
Sharon,
the
over on that bottom left corner. Like,
oh, yes.
See the one line at the very bottom, the first one that travels the whole way across the quilt. And that's just following the piecing seam.
Yes.
And I did that for every one of those lines.
Right.
Going up and the other way. But I did it, I would do it methodically. So I would stitch that one line and then echo once on each side.
Yes.
So that's like done. Then I'll move to the next one. And then, progress. Just for me, that usually works best, or else I get confused. Like you start to echo them all at the same time and you kind of can't tell, you know what I mean, which one was for the top line and which one was for the bottom line. And that's all it is really, is you're following, the seam and then an echo on each side, both directions.
Right. I like it. I've not done that method before, but I can see there's no marking required.
Right.
And wow, I quite like that. I think she might like that one too. It's going to be hard to decide, I tell you.
Well, and too, those echoes, that there maybe need to be more, or just because I don't know the scale of it.
Yeah, one of those stars is approximately 16 inches from sort of the outermost point.
Mm.
Right.
Yeah,
So you might need to do like 2 on each side.
maybe.
And I
Or-
would just maybe with chalk, just draw them maybe just to see on one how many you think.
Mhm. I'm really interested in thread choice. You mentioned a light gray,
I would probably do medium gray
medium gray. Okay,
in a thin weight, like maybe
Right.
60 weight,
a 60. Okay,
because then you're not going to really see it
right.
anywhere. If you go light, then you're going to see it on the dark.
On
and
the
it-
dark. So a medium. Okay.
Yeah, I think that's my go-to really most
Yeah.
often,
Oh.
because
And what do
you'd drive yourself insane trying to change for
Oh,
every.
God. Yeah. Yeah. What do you use for your drawing? What program?
I just open mine in pictures
Mhm.
because I have, as long as you open it in a touch screen where you can draw.
Cool. And Eva, I didn't ask you what thread choice you would choose on your option.
I would choose the gray as well. Same
Oh, you
thing.
girls are gray.
Gray.
Okay. A medium
I know
gray
we
as well.
sound pretty dull, but no, because you can't, change. Or, well, I guess you can, but I wouldn't. And the problem is, I wouldn't be opposed to using a color, but the way the very dark pieces are intermixed with the very light, even if I chose to choose gradiating, color choices, it wouldn't work for this particular quilt, because they're just too mixed up. So for that
Yes.
reason, I would stick to the gray.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
All ready to go to the next one?
Mhm.
That's me.
Oh, wow.
It's tiny because I zoomed way in.
Wow.
I would also use a medium gray thread, but I would use like either 60 or 100 weight because I want it to be more about texture with my design, and with all that dense fill in that curved ruler work. I don't want it to compete with the colors. So the thinner the thread, the more it's going to make texture and not visual stitching.
Mm-hmm.
And then I just did little like leaf OG shapes in the stars and in where the big pieces meet together. And I shouldn't say it's fairly continuous. At least when I was drawing it, it was fairly continuous. You just have to remember when you stop there, add that little leaf shape.
The leaf shape
Sharon, look at that. Can you hover over that burgundy where that little leaf is by itself? Up, right, up, to the right, to the right, or right there, it doesn't matter. Yeah.
Oh, that burgundy, the only burgundy.
I just went with the darkest color I could see.
Sorry.
So
I'm
it's
like,
just
there's
like,
no burgundy, but there is.
it's just like two little S curves that make a little, either like a leaf or an OG shape. So as I'm ditching around the star, I'd stop and fill that little leaf in on both sides, then come back down the other side of the star.
Well, that's smart.
And in those little 4-pointed stars, I'd probably connect one to the point just so that I didn't have to stop and start in the center.
You're really good at path.
Yeah.
I usually don't figure out my path until I'm like 3/4 of the way through the quilt, and I'd be like, "Oh, that's the path."
Usually the first one, I don't have it. By the second or third one, I'm like, I've got it. Now, as long as I don't take a break from the quilt, I'll still have the path. If I walk away, then no.
Oh, that's great. I really like the mix. I like dense quilting myself. And I think that what you've shown here is really going to show up. Sometimes I have trouble where I think I have a great idea in mind, but once it translates onto the quilt, it doesn't show up as much as the work I've put into it. So
Yeah.
I always struggle with that balance between knowing how much to put in, especially when you're doing a customer quilt.
Mhm.
But I like this balance. There's quite a bit of, there's a nice mix between dense and not too dense.
Yeah, and I mean, you can, like, we always say we don't see the scale when we're drawing, and it's true, but you can always, in those star points, you can even fill some of those echoes in or make more echoes so that that balances more, you know, if they're too large. I just like the move. Oh, go ahead.
And I think too, with it being solid fabrics, Laura, I don't think you have to worry too much, you know, about you not seeing how it translates onto your quilt, because everything's gonna show. And, you know, and Karen's example, I love how it looks lacy, you know, around those flower designs or leaf designs. But keep in mind, you know, it's pretty intense quilting. It's gonna take a minute to do all that tiny lacy quilting, but it's gorgeous.
It is gorgeous, yes.
I just like how it pulls the eye from that little small 4-pointed star toward the larger stars.
Mm-hmm.
So just one more question, Karen, if I could. In that lacy area, is it sort of a swirl or
That's just how I draw a dense fill. It could be whatever dense fill you're happy with, whether it's pebbles or meandering or curly cues. That's just, when I draw, that just means to me that's a really dense fill.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, last one. Okay. So I'm going to go against the grain and put a color thread on the quilt. If it was mine. We just did one recently with all of these solids. I think it was an Allison Glass pattern too. And the color of thread we put on it was kind of like this color here, but a little bit lighter. And then we did another one and we put kind of a like a soft lime on it. You could even go with this mint kind of sea foam color across it. But like Karen said, she would choose like a 60 or 100 weight. If you do go with the color, I would definitely go something with a lighter weight, just because then it's not going to be as much about the color of the thread than it will be the texture that the thread creates. So I wouldn't be scared to put a color on it, but you could lay a few out and see what you think. You've got to like it on the lightest and the darkest of the fabrics before you settle on it, right? But some of these mint ones, like those kinds of pastel type colors, they're kind of almost sheer. So they look like a color on the spool, but then when they lay across the quilt, they are very sheer and they almost pick up some of the colors in the quilt. So
some of those really light blues almost read as white on the darks. Yeah.
Yeah. I just wouldn't want to go with a dark color, because you wouldn't want to have, I wouldn't personally want to have darker lines going through the lighter fabric. I'd rather see the lighter thread going through a darker fabric. So
the lighter thread going through a darker fabric.
Right.
Okay. And Sharon, are you talking about choosing one color of thread?
Yeah. I definitely wouldn't be changing throughout for sure.
Right. Good.
And I think, as everybody said, with the solids, you're going to see texture no matter what you put on this because of the solid fabric. It's not like, so if you look at the quilt that's behind Jodi compared to the quilt that's behind me, Jodi's is all about the quilting, and those solids show off that quilting like awesome. But then mine is such patterned fabric and the quilting is just almost as dense, but you just don't see it, right? So with solid fabrics, you're going to see the quilting regardless of what you choose. And I know that was one of your goals, was to be able to achieve that texture that you see in other quilts and you ooh and ah over, right?
Yes.
So one of the nicest or easiest ways to achieve texture is to have designs that are different. So we can have curvy designs besides straight designs. So I just chose the lines and radiating out from the stars into little feathers. And what I did with the feathers, so I treated each one as kind of like its own little orbit. So they're going in this direction, in this little shape. And then the one beside it, oops, they should have been going the opposite direction, but I guess these ones are going in the opposite direction. So do as I say, not as I did.
No, they're all going counterclockwise, Sharon.
Oh, dang.
Lean back and you can see it.
Oh man, I totally wanted those to go the other way. So visualize, visualize. And here I'm talking about it as if they are, and I didn't even see it. Yeah, I would put those in opposing directions, but actually it doesn't look that bad, but
No,
I
it
think I
looks
would
good.
want to look at it going the, just to give lots of nice movement inside there. So just the opposition of a feather. And if one of the things I like about these kind of weird shapes is if you're wanting to practice your feathers, putting them into odd shapes is a really, really good way to get good at them, because you're going to come across all kinds of spaces in quilts as you carry on quilting, and you're going to have practice somehow. And so it's like, okay, how can I put those feathers in those shape? And if you're struggling with, like you said, having an idea and then having it translate well onto the actual quilt, draw on a transparency sheet with some dry erase marker right on top of the quilt. You're drawing it to scale. That way you can get a really good visual. Say it's too much or it's not enough. Need to change my plan. And you can get a nice preview of it before you even put the needle through the fabric at all.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, and in these little guys, I just put some pebbles in there just for something smaller of a texture. So we have kind of 3 different textures, and it is, I'll zoom in for one sec. I did outline them, but you wouldn't have to break thread if you didn't want to. This is a Jodi trick. I never thought about doing this before, but if you sneak in from this point and come straight up to it, then you can go here and then you can zip back.
Oh, yes.
And that way you can come back right out and then carry on without having to break thread on the inside to make that echo.
That's a good idea. So you not only have one entry point, you're going to do it to all 4.
Yeah, you would do it to all 4 just to make
It
it
almost makes it look like a frame around whatever you're.
Yeah, like a little mitered frame in the corner. Yeah.
And then if you realize you forgot something way over on the other side, you can travel your way all the way back over there. Sometimes I think, why did you just do that? Like you went a foot backtracking through there instead of just tying off.
Yeah. But if you're using a lighter thread, like Karen said, if you do have to do a little bit of traveling, it just kind of sinks in a little bit easier. Are the seams pressed open? But it's foundation piece, so they're not pressed open, right?
Let me check.
You should have ditches.
Yeah, they are pressed open.
Oh, they are.
Open. Oh, wait. They're both. They're a combination of open and
so where
to
your
one
foundation
side.
piece, them they'll be pressed to one side, and then when you've joined the units, they're probably pressed open.
That sounds like what she did. Yeah.
So then that will be a consideration as well, because depending on which, I don't even know how it's pieced, but it's difficult to choose a side of a ditch when there isn't a ditch, right? So you'll just have to keep that in mind as you're traveling through. Some of the spots you want to make sure, like say, for example, if this wasn't ditched, it's a good way to quilt across the ditch to stabilize it, not having to worry about a ditch. But these ones, you might just have to be a little bit more mindful when you're stitching beside them to just choose a side and try and stitch just a slight off center. Does that make sense?
One side of the seam, if it's open, are you saying?
Yeah. So your stitches don't disappear down into the space between the two fabrics. Yeah.
Right. Right. Oh yeah, another consideration I didn't think about. I really like this design as well. Really, truly, it's going to be hard to design something just picking one. But what I like about this one is I like how what you started with there, I see a hex as well with the pattern that you've stitched. And it might be kind of cool to do that and another hex somewhere else on the quilt. And then I don't know. I don't know what that would look like. What do you think?
Like this whole thing made a big hex, right? Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not sure what you would do, like if you would add maybe 3 of those big hexes somewhere and even overlapping. I quite like that look actually, but I'm not quite sure what you would do in the areas where the hex wasn't.
Yeah, and it's actually centered between this, the width, it's centered in the width. So Jodi could probably suggest, like with Jodi's design, you could maybe do that in the balance of the space
ruler
where
work.
it's just the straight lines and then one focus area.
Or you might even just do straight lines because it really would emphasize, those shapes would really stand out if you filled all the remaining area with just plain straight lines.
Right.
It would
Either
really push
vertical
your
or
eye right to those shapes.
So if I rotate this once, I guess that is kind of centered. So you could do, would you do them in this direction?
Probably. Well, no, whichever way it's loaded. I mean, I would load it to make it the easiest. I would want to do them this way.
Right.
That's interesting.
It is. If you were to do adding the straight lines in there, how do you deal with the ends, like your stops and starts?
You'd have to travel on one of
I
your
would,
previously stitched lines. Is that what
You would, hey?
Once you hit one of these, then you'd have to travel over a bit to come back down. And then here you'd be off the quilt.
Yep.
And then you come back up and travel a smidge.
Okay.
You wouldn't want
That would be interesting to try on my brand new Gammill, because what I noticed on the Gammill compared to the machine I had before that is that you can go from left to right and from right to left very easily. Whereas my other machine only liked left to right. So now I feel that I can do maybe a little bit more or practice a bit more on all different directions.
Did you get a brand new machine or did you get a one that was already?
I did. I went through Maple Leaf Quilting Company and they came on Monday and delivered a brand new, it's non-computerized. So is it a Vision? Vision, yes. Yes. So I believe I have the option to add computerized, but I'm really not interested. I think I'll just try and master this first and then see where that goes.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. And Sharon, I reached out to you and I thought, hey, I took a class from her. She was so awesome. I'm going to message her and get a little bit of advice before I bought the machine.
Are you Poppy
I'm
Seed?
Poppy Seed. Yeah.
Oh, that's you. Okay. Because on Instagram, it's not the same name, right? So I wasn't sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you for that. I was really quite pleasantly surprised. So.
You're welcome. Thanks for asking. Anytime.
Okay, well, that was a lot of fun. What a cool quilt. So hopefully, Laura, you can make a decision more easily now, or maybe you're more confused. You never know, but as I said, you'll get the drawings and then you can ponder on it and, discuss it with your customer. But in the meantime, thank you so much for joining us. And don't forget, we'd love to see the finished quilt, if you want to share it either with us or on any of the Gammill Facebook groups, that would be awesome.
Oh, I shall do. Thank you, Eva. I will do that for sure. Thank you very, very much, ladies.
Thank you,
Laura.
Thank you.
Nice to see you.
Alrighty. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. Well, that's it for today. Hopefully you enjoyed this episode and we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.